Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a mighty and wealthy king. He had an only daughter named Isabella, known throughout the land for her extraordinary beauty. Her golden hair shimmered like sunlight, and her eyes sparkled like the clearest skies. Poets wrote verses about her, and painters longed to capture her radiance. Yet along with her beauty came a prideful and arrogant nature. Isabella believed that no man was worthy of her, and often mocked those who came to court her. Her father, concerned for her future, decided to host a grand banquet, inviting princes, dukes, and nobles from all over neighboring and distant realms, hoping Isabella would choose a suitable husband. The castle was adorned with the most beautiful tapestries, golden chandeliers, and fragrant flowers. Musicians played cheerful tunes, and the scent of roasted meats filled the air. On the day of the feast, the palace sparkled with lights, and noble guests gathered in their finest attire, excited to catch a glimpse of the famed princess. When Isabella entered, her beauty stunned everyone. Her gown shimmered like starlight, and her poise was as regal as a queen's. But as soon as the suitors were introduced, she began to mock them without mercy. One tall prince approached, and she sneered. "He looks like a beanpole. How ridiculous." Another shorter duke appeared, and she laughed. "This one is as tiny as a dwarf. I could carry him in my pocket." One had a limp, and she whispered loudly, "Should I marry a man who dances like a scarecrow in the wind?" Another had a lisp, and she imitated him cruelly, causing others to chuckle nervously. Finally, a young king stepped forward. He had a handsome face, kind eyes, and noble bearing, but a slightly pointed beard that curved at the end. Isabella stared and burst into laughter. "Look! His beard looks like a thrush's beak. I shall call him King Thrushbeard." Her mocking embarrassed and angered everyone. Many guests left in shame. The king could no longer bear it, and declared in front of the entire court, "Daughter, you have insulted every honorable man who came to court you. You have disgraced our house. I vow that you shall marry the very next man who walks through the palace gates, whoever he may be." Isabella was shocked and pleaded in vain, but the king's word was final. The next morning, a poor minstrel happened to pass by the gates, singing and playing his lute for coins. His clothes were patched and his shoes were worn, but his voice was soft and full of feeling. The king summoned him and said, "This is the man. You shall marry him." Dumbfounded and heartbroken, Isabella was forced into the wedding. The ceremony was simple, with no gold, no choir, and no guests. Afterward, her new husband led her away from the palace. They passed vast golden fields, dense whispering forests, and humble villages bustling with children and animals. Isabella, used to silk cushions and scented baths, felt every stone underfoot and winced at the coarse food. Eventually, they reached a small, crooked hut at the edge of a forest. The minstrel said, "This is our home. You must now learn to live simply and work for your living." Though reluctant and frightened, Isabella had no choice. The next day, her husband asked her to weave cloth to sell, but her delicate hands, used only to embroidery, could not master the loom. Threads snapped, the shuttle tangled, and her cloth was a mess. He sighed and said, "If you can't weave, try spinning." She tried, but her fingers blistered, and the spinning wheel frustrated her. He shook his head. "Perhaps we must find something else." He took her to the market and gave her pottery to sell. Isabella sat in the corner, embarrassed, avoiding eye contact. She knew the people recognized her. Whispers spread. "Isn't that the princess?" She didn't sell a thing. One day, a soldier on horseback galloped by, accidentally shattering all her wares. Isabella cried, But her husband only said, "See, business is not so easy. We must try again." Finally, he arranged a job for her as a kitchen maid in her former palace. She had to rise before dawn, carry heavy water buckets, scrub floors, pluck chickens, and wash greasy pots. Her back ached, and her hands became raw. She cried silently at night, but did not complain. Gradually, she began to see the dignity in labor and the kindness in the hearts of those she once ignored. One day, a great feast was held at the palace for the marriage of a noble prince. Isabella was tasked with serving food in the grand hall. As she entered, the chandeliers sparkled, and the smell of roses and wine filled the air. She recognized many noble guests she had once ridiculed. She lowered her head, trembling, hoping to remain unseen. Suddenly she saw her husband, but he was no poor minstrel. He stood at the head of the room in royal garments, crowned and radiant. Isabella froze. He approached and said with a gentle smile, "Isabella, I am King Thrushbeard, the one you mocked. I disguised myself as a minstrel to teach you humility and compassion. Now that you've learned these virtues, I am proud of you." Tears streamed down Isabella's cheeks. "Your Majesty, I was wrong. I deeply regret my pride and cruel words. I've learned that true worth is not in titles or appearances, but in kindness, patience, and love." The king embraced her before the gathered guests. "Now we shall rule our kingdom together, with wisdom, grace, and a heart for all people." And so, Isabella and King Thrushbeard lived happily, becoming beloved rulers. Under their reign, the kingdom flourished, not just in wealth but in fairness and joy. Isabella was never again proud or haughty. She visited the kitchens often, helped the poor, and treated all with respect. From that day forward, children sang songs of the proud princess, who became the wise queen, and the thrush-bearded king who taught her to love truly.